Hill. Jill, not Hill.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Thank you all so much. Perish the thought of Hill. You know, people say to me sometimes, so you're okay with getting Trump elected? And I say, I will be horrified if Donald Trump gets elected, and I will be horrified if Hillary Clinton gets elected, and I am most horrified by a political system that gives us two lethal choices and says pick between them and that's it. That's fundamentally what we have to reject. And the good news, you know, is that this is really what the American people have really rejected. That rejection has been growing, and it has really reached critical proportions. You know, and it's not just Bernie Sanders who's bringing the system down, or Donald Trump. They are really reflections of the inherent dysfunction of this system, and the fact that the house of cards really is coming down, and the sooner that happens, the better. And as Chris was saying, it's like a house that has been eaten out. Excuse me, I've been talking too much. A house that's been eaten out from the inside by termites, and it's just waiting to collapse now. Polls have shown for quite some time that voters have rejected both of these parties, have been clamoring for an independent third party or parties. And a most recent poll by the Wall Street Journal showed that Republicans are now 21% of the electorate, Democrats are 29%, so they're both minority parties, and 50% have actually divorced both of those parties. So this is a system that's really been waiting to collapse, and for a variety of reasons, you know, Sanders and Donald Trump have really forced the issue, and it's really important, excuse me, that, you know, that we seize this moment. As Chris was saying, you know, the clock is ticking. This is kind of the Hail Mary moment. It's now or never. In many ways, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, just came out with a report last week, and apologies to those who heard me earlier in the day, but you know, I think we need to talk about this at every opportunity. What the organization said, it was one of their senior scientists talking at a conference of the insurance industry, and what she said was they had just received an oh my God report from the West Antarctic ice sheet, confirming what Jim Hansen said about a year ago, but moving up the timetable, so that we could expect about 9 feet of sea level rise by 2050 if we haven't taken fundamentally, you know, profoundly different action by then. But what is it that is happening under even the Democratic White House with 2 Democratic houses of Congress? You know, we got all of the above, which was basically drill baby drill on steroids. If you actually look at what happened, yes, they increased renewable energy, and that's great, but nature doesn't know about renewable energy. Nature knows about fossil fuels and the poison that, that carbon emissions and methane create. And in fact, the report also just released last week showed that not only are these emissions continuing to go up, but they are accelerating at the rate that they are going up. And even while the agreement in Paris was being forged, this agreement for which there was a lot of hot air and celebration, no pun intended, about the hot air in Paris, even at the same time that Obama and company were celebrating this agreement, they were behind closed doors signing on to the end of the oil export ban, which basically massively increases fossil fuel excavation in the U.S. And under all of the above, we wrapped pipeline around the world. Remember, Obama was bragging about that in the 2012 election. So the point is, we've got 2 corporate parties here. Neither of them is going to save us. One is kind of the corporate vision with a smile, and the other is a corporate vision, shall we say, without a smile. And they are funded by the same predatory banks, fossil fuel giants, and war profiteers and insurance companies. So that's what we get with more or less kind of public relations trappings around them. It's really clear that we can't keep going in this direction because we are only accelerating, whether you are looking at the climate meltdown, which is now, it's now got a deadline. And that's within the lifetimes of many people in this room. 2050, half of Manhattan will be underwater. And not only half of Manhattan, but all of the coast and all of the population centers around the coast, not just of the US, but around the world. And that means about 600 million people are refugees. We think we have a problem right now handling the 40 million refugees fleeing from other consequences of misguided corporate US military and economic policies, poverty and war, basically, thanks to our war machines and our and our economic domination and free trade agreements and things like that. We are not going to survive this hit unless we resolve to change that right now. The greater evil right here, is this meltdown we are looking at, not only of the climate, but also of our economy, because the Dodd-Frank bill did not fix that. The banks are bigger than ever, more predatory than ever, more prone to fail than ever. And look at the war effort and the drones and the assault on our civil liberties under a Democratic Party with 2 Democratic houses of Congress. It's really important to stand up and to recognize that propaganda campaign for what it is. It is a self-serving propaganda campaign used by the Democrats to basically maintain their stranglehold on power. It's important to recognize that we actually have the power. In the words of Alice Walker, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. If you take one group alone that has no place to go except into a green campaign, and of course I want to agree with both of our previous eminent speakers that political parties are really, in my view, they are the megaphone for the social movements.
Yes.
The real work, the real engine of change here is our social movements, of course. But if we don't also fight in the halls of power, we're basically raising the white flag of surrender. And we will be bulldozed, with the stroke of a pen based on policies that are delivered by those 2 political predators. So we must stand up. And the great news is that we can stand up, and we actually have the power to stand up. If you took only the number of people who are locked into predatory student loan debt, something we don't hear enough about, but it is an absolute life-changing issue for an entire generation and more, who are basically locked into economic servitude for the rest of their lives without hope of getting out, given what the economy is in this state of Wall Street domination. And those people are 43 million. That is a winning plurality in a presidential race. And there's only one campaign they can go to, which will bail them out, like we bailed out the bankers who crashed the economy. It's about time to bail out the victims of that waste, fraud, and abuse. If that word were to get out, it doesn't take a whole lot of motivation for people to recognize they can cancel that debt, basically, with the stroke of a pen. Come out and vote green in 2016, and friends don't let friends stay home in debt. We could see this very crazy election get a whole lot crazier very quickly. Let me just mention another thing that could make the election get a whole lot crazier very quickly. We are right now in the polls where Bernie Sanders was about 6 months ago. So don't for a minute accept the propaganda that we are powerless, that we are irrelevant to this process and this discussion. As Bernie's campaign begins to fold, which in some sense it already is, the writing is very clear where it's going. As it continues down that path, basically a path of sabotage, because the Democrats have been waiting for a moment to ambush Bernie. What we're seeing going on with Nevada is the Dean scream of 2016. This is a concocted ambush that was just waiting for the right moment. This is what the Democrats always do. This is why we cannot have a revolutionary campaign in a counter-revolutionary party.
Oh.
We are seeing play out.
Right.
We are seeing play out in real time why it is that we must build this party. You know, in my view, and believe me, I had to be dragged kicking and screaming into electoral politics. I was tricked into running for office. And I was really tricked into joining a political party in order to try that. Everything else had failed, basically. In my decades as an activist, in the many movements that I tried to, assist, I saw that we are only backsliding. We needed coalitions. We created a coalition to pass campaign finance reform in Massachusetts. Who killed it? The Democratic Party, the dominant force in the Massachusetts legislature. They repealed it after, on a voice vote, in a Democratic Party caucus, in a legislature that had 85% Democrats. So they could have passed it themselves, but instead they repealed it after we passed it as a movement. As a voter referendum, the Democrats repealed it, which for me was the last straw, and I knew I would never have anything to do with the Democratic Party, and that is not where the change is going to happen. And that view, this was back in 2000, has basically been borne out. But the bottom line is we need to stand up. We need to stand up now. This is the Hail Mary moment. It's now or never if we really want to decommission those nuclear power plants along the coast, and there are about 24 of them that will create Fukushimas. If we do not begin to act right now, they are going to flood out. They are at sea level. And, this is not an academic issue. This is not a discretionary issue. This makes all other propaganda look very small. When they start talking about Supreme Court appointments, we should be telling the Supreme Court what to do. That's what we did back in the 1960s in getting women's right to choose through the Supreme Court, because we had a very active and powerful movement. We also told Nixon what to do back in the 1960s, one of the worst, most oppressive presidents ever. We told him what to do. We brought the troops home from Vietnam. We created the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act and protected workers in the workplace with OSHA. So don't for a minute accept this propaganda that we are powerless. We are powerful. And the minute we flick that switch in our own minds from powerless to powerful, we'll discover that we actually have the numbers that it takes to win this battle. We have the values, we have the visions, we have programmatic solutions. The missing ingredient here is the courage of our own convictions to stand up and be the dominant force that we can be right now. And whether we win the White House and turn it into a greenhouse, or we simply help elevate this political battle as part of the social battle, this is what we do. The attitude of cowardice that we are being told to accept when we're told vote for the lesser evil, we're being told be cowards in the voting booth. If you're a coward in the voting booth, it's hard to have courage out in the street. We need to have courage everywhere that we go. Final comment. It's time to forget the lesser evil and fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because they do. We have the power to put people, planet, and peace over profit, and the power to do that is not just in our hopes and our dreams, it's right here and right now in our hands. Thank you very much.